Today, we are going to talk about death, spirits, ancestors, and Korean Shamanism with Seo Kelleher. Stay tuned. It is Unsermon with Kat Kim. For those of you guys that are new to me, I am a spiritual mentor and confidence coach. I'm the person that's going to help you overcome your fears, blocks, and shame so that you can step into the best version of yourself and truly make a difference. I am so excited for this episode today. I have a very, very special guest with me today. Her name is Seo Kelleher. Hello, Seo.
Hi, Kat. Hi, everyone.
Seo is a Korean American shamanism. She owns a publishing company. She's working on some really amazing projects. I would love for you to introduce yourself. What do you do? And then we'll get into the project.
All right. So I am a Korean American shaman. So essentially, the work I do is a work of a healer. So I help people really similar to what Kat does, but from more by ancestral shamanic point of view to help people heal whatever that's blocking them from being truly who they are and really living and thriving as their soul self. And a lot of my gift comes from my connection to my ancestral spirits and my shamanic guides. That's through my lineage in my Korean ancestry. I also am an author, so I have a book and an oracle deck, and I just started this year being a micropress or small publishing company to not just publish my own things, but also share the wisdom of my ancestry. So Korean, there's so much wisdom and magic in that culture that's just not available yet in English. So I am working on changing that.
Oh, I am so grateful for that because as you and I have talked already before, I'm Korean American and I'm seeking, like yearning and craving so much of, like, I want to learn about my culture and my history and shamanism, but everything is in Korean. And my level of Korean is definitely not at that place where I can read spiritual books or even history and understand it. So the amount or the number of books that are translated well, that are not really dry and boring, because I've come across those books as well, but that are translated well, I think are really, really minimal. And so I really appreciate your work.
Thank you. Yeah.
What I want to say is, for those of you guys that are watching right now, we're talking about Korean shamanism, but even if you're not Korean, I encourage you to listen because this will apply to you. For those of you guys that know my journey, you guys know that my father passed away recently. It's 2018. It's almost 3 years now. I found him dead in his bed. And my relationship with my father prior him passing was non-existent. I knew nothing about him. It wasn't until after he died that almost immediately, almost the day after, and this is a crazy story, but here in Seattle during that time, there was like the fires that were going on all over Oregon coast and California and BC. So during that time in August, when it's really, really sunny, there was all of this smog. It was around for about a month, and you couldn't even like breathe because it was like really thick, and the smog was like landing on the cars and everything. The day after my father passed, I was walking in the park. I looked up, the smog completely cleared up. And I literally saw the sun, and it started shining so bright. And for the first time, I felt my father's unconditional love. It was so pure. It had completely just been stripped of all of the ego, the messiness, the gambling addiction, the abuse. And I felt his presence right there. And since that day, since his passing, I have been able to create a relationship with my father, and he communicates with me and he tells me stories. And so what I want to say to those of you guys that are listening, my understanding of death and life has completely changed. And now I'm really exploring my roots. And so whatever your roots are, that's also possible for you. And that is what leads me to you and this book called Return. So tell us about this project and Return.
So return is Korea's rituals of death, spirits, and ancestors, and it's
Yeah.
a photo book, so photo art book with poetry and essays by this photographer. The author's name is Chan-ho Park. So he's very renowned photographer, photojournalist in Korea, in South Korea, specializing in really capturing this Korean shamanism or indigenous, like original Korean cultural aspects. So he's been doing this work for over 10 years. And this book is his personal thing was he had lost his mother early on. And his mom died of cancer when he was 13. And that trauma stuck with him even through his entire life. We understand that childhood trauma lasts. And then he had his own health, like a near-death health concern. So it really made him realize that, why am I so fearful of death? And maybe I could work through this fear and this dread and trauma by actually going to places of death, because Korea has many. So in America, we have funerals and memorial services and such, but Korea has many different ways of honoring the dead. So he went to different sites of ancestral ritual, funeral, traditional burial ceremony, Buddhist monks cremation ceremony. So he just kept going and meeting with the people, talking with the people, and then also like documenting the scenes. And that ended up really giving him the healing and clarity.
Wow. Like, so he's basically going to ceremonies or funerals and he's taking pictures, right? And that was his way. He was like chasing death almost, like not chasing it in a bad way, but he was like seeking it.
Seeking it out. And then the stories of the deceased, stories of those who are left behind, the spiritual people or the shamans or the people who are in that, right? Like, so they have traditional pallbearers who sing special songs. They have special ritualistic burials. So he got to talk to these people and like kind of experience the death in a very, and I realize there's that meaningful part of death and transition and spirit and ancestor, similar to that little moment of clarity that opened everything up for you after your father passed.
Yeah. And so this is the project that this is the book that you're publishing, right? Through your publishing company. And you're doing a Kickstarter on this right now. So everyone, check out the Kickstarter. The links are in the show notes. I invested in this like right away. For very personal reasons, of course, like as I shared, but like the moment that I clicked on your Kickstarter and I saw the pictures, like tears came up in my eyes. And the pictures are they're alive. They're alive, even though it's about death. There was like life and death or something. And the imagery of it, it just moved me so much. And I was like, this is so beautiful. And I think it's something that we can all really take on about, like, when we think about, we're so consumed in trying to live and following the rat race, like trying to live our best lives. And even in the trying of it, we forget to live, actually live. And then all of a sudden we're faced with death, whether it's a loved one, or whether it's going to be us at a certain age where we have to really think about, oh my goodness, I'm coming to the end chapters of my life, which is what my mother is going through. And I see her really, she's very sad about it. She's very depressed about it. So I think it's something that we can all really like start to think about and bring into our awareness. Like, what is the, in one of my Buddhist teachings, I remember someone saying, it's not about the art of life, it's about the art of death. Because eventually we all pass. We all, pass on. And so how do we like create the best experience of that?
Yeah. So I'm so glad you said that, because now, like, because I translated all the thing, I kind of know the inside of the book by heart. And there's a part where the author talks about um, how do you die well? So what
Yeah.
is a good death? And
Yeah. Oh,
inevitably, that's basically how do you want to live right now?
yeah,
So how do you
exactly.
stay present? How do you
Yes.
live today's moment? So even though people say, "Oh, it's a book about death," it's really not book about death. It's almost like a book encouraging you to really contemplate and like
Yeah.
kind of seek within yourself to about like, well, what's important to me and how do I want to live my life? How do
Yeah.
I want to be remembered by
Oh,
those who are left behind? Um,
yeah. How
and
do
how
I
do I
die?
live forever? Because people want to live forever. But how do I live forever? Through the legacy and memories that you leave
Uh-huh.
behind. Um,
Yeah.
so it's
Oh,
powerful.
I got chills. I think that one question, if anyone takes away anything from this, like take that one question away, like, how do I die well?
Mm,
No, I think that's such a beautiful twist to that whole like, how do I live my best life? Which is really, I think, been co-opted by consumerism. And it's all about do this and do that. But actually, how do you die well? And what does that look like? And even like me, I don't even have the answer to that because I haven't really asked myself that question. Um, but I think it's something that we can all like pray on or meditate on. You know,
mhm,
how do I die well? That's so beautiful. I want to read this one thing that you wrote
mm.
that just moved me. And I remember I told you about this. I was like, I saw it somewhere and I finally found it. And it happened to be your quote. So you say about this book, Chano's photos makes viewers feel as if they are standing in the in-between space between the physical and the spiritual worlds, between heaven and earth, the living and the dead. At this vantage point, we can imagine and contemplate death and beyond, reflecting on our own death, the deaths of our loved ones, and how we want to live our lives today. That's so good. That's
Oh,
so good.
thank you.
No, I think it's because like I'm at this phase in my life where I am contemplating death. You know, my father
Mhm,
passed away, and I think a lot of people are here actually because of the pandemic, and we just it seems like death is all around us on a kind of
mhm.
a global collective energetic scale. And it's like, you know, what you say about standing in between space. It's like I don't know, there's something very beautiful about that.
And it's also, as a shaman, that's what
Mhm.
shamans are. Shamans are the connector that stays in between place. So especially in
Oh,
the Korean shamans or mudang are able to but usually shamans are the connectors. So like human world and the spirit world, and be able to either channel through like actual intuitive work or healing work, but also through rituals and wisdoms and
wow.
whatever they do.
Wow.
We live and we work from that in between
Oh
place.
my gosh. That is such a great explanation of shamanism. So I'm very new to Korean shamanism. And so this is kind of like, I'm so curious about it. This is almost like a shamanism 101. So can you say more about that? I mean, you just said it really beautifully, but shamanism basically, as a shaman, you're like a, what do you call your, like a community? Do you communicate with the ancestors? They communicate to you and then you're able to relay that information to the living?
So in so first of all, I wouldn't consider myself an expert in Korean shamanism or anything like that, but
Yeah.
because I've done enough studies and teachers and I do
Mhm.
this work,
Mhm.
I could probably, I'm more knowledgeable than many who are
Mhm.
watching. So I just want to make sure that if I don't know it, I'll find out answers for you. But
Yeah.
essentially, we use Korean shamanism because that's what even though the word shaman is
Mhm.
uh, not people are not that familiar, we at least know what shaman means. But in Korean word, Korean shamanism is called mugyo or
Okay.
musok. It's a different name. And then Korean shamans are called either mudang or manshin. There's a different name. But
Mhm.
because I'm a Korean American shaman who live
Mhm.
and work in America, I
Mhm.
think Korean shamanism is the right word to um, use. because then we don't have to do additional explanation of what that is.
Got it.
And in our work, our ancestral connection is a big part of the work. So in our culture, we believe once we die, there's a reincarnation. So there's the other world. So there's no heaven and hell in Christian sense, but when we die, there's this far away spirit world or the other world. And when someone dies, and if they had any trauma or regrets or unresolved issue, that's called Han, right? We talk about Han, Korean, very unique Korean concept. I don't want to say concept because it's real. It's a term called Han. So more of this burden that people carry, or our ancestor carry at the time of death, that's unresolved. Everything is connected, so it will affect those who are living.
Yeah. So Han is like unresolved anger or resentment or something like that.
Regret, anger, trauma. It's like burden on that on that soul, on that person.
Wow. So when they pass on, they go to like, and I'm sure let's just use general terms, but when people pass on, they pass on to a spirit world. And if they have not healed their Han, right, they carry that over into that spirit world.
And sometimes that affects the descendants.
Yes, right.
It's that burden. Because everything is connected. So the book and the death rituals that people do and all the ancestor ritual, so they have a lot of rituals and practices to in attempt to either relieve of their regrets and Han, like to relieve of their trauma, heal them. So heal that soul who's dying, so appeasing that soul, healing that soul, evening that balance. So a lot of rituals are done. So when they transition to the other world, they're clear, they're lighter. Because in return, then they're able to, from the other, they could actually support us and help us and guide us. But if they're troubled and if they're unhealed and unresolved, they have their unresolved stuff, like their plate's full. They're not able to guide us and support us. And sometimes that trauma can actually affect us negatively. So it's almost, so a lot of death ritual and practices, and even in Korean shamanism, is all around that, finding that balance, right? Evening that natural balance, healing, whether you're living, shamans try to heal you now, so you have less suffering, less blocks, so you could actually go do what you're meant to do. But if you die, then we do rituals to relieve the suffering and burden or like unresolved stuff for the spirit, so they can transition and everything is clear and in balance.
This is so fascinating, because as I'm listening to you explain this, I'm thinking this is so different from Western spirituality, and so maybe you can help us understand, like, you're connecting with basically our ancestors. And so you're in the world of our ancestors, and like, would you say you have access to that, or what's the right wording around that? You have access to their world.
I think we all have ancestors. So I believe whether you are shaman or not, our ancestors, we just don't recognize it, but they're around and they're supporting us and they're helping us. When you are the chosen one or become a shaman, some of your ancestors are just there as, like, we could say guardian angel or supporter and helper. But when you become a shaman, there's specific deities or gods, or so, like Archangel Michael. We know what Archangel Michael's, like, people already know what they kind of look like. There are a lot of images of what he must help with people, like protection and life purpose. Archangel Michael is known to be able to help people like that. So in Korean shamanism, there are specific deities or gods that are known for power. So they have their own magic and power, like goddesses. So some witches work with goddesses and they channel. So it's similar to that. To me, that's just archetypes. So archetypes. So this is my own point of view. In every culture, we all had to work as human in connection to nature and this divine world, this unexplained world. So in ways to really work with this energy, which is just all energy, we had to create some type of archetype to understand, because it's all energy. We can't say, well, this energy is going to help me with abundance. This energy is going to help me with protection. This energy is going to help me with wisdom. So in order for people to kind of specifically utilize these energy, I think in every culture, many different cultures, they created this archetype. So in one culture, it's Gaia. But then in another culture, it's Mago. In our culture, it's Mago. So, Archangel Michael could be warrior god in Korean shamanism. So it's just an archetype. But over the courses of people using that archetype energy, I think it became stronger and stronger. So it almost feels like a human, like a goddess-like energy, god or goddess-like energy. But it's all energy. So in Korean shamanism, these archetypes exist. So, mountain spirit god usually does this. Mago usually does this. There's an ocean god, Yongwang, does this. So it's similar to what, I don't know. I'm not a witch, but I think some people work with like Athena for this or Diana for that. Each goddess is like Aphrodite, like there. So it's kind of similar to that. So as a Korean shaman, these deities, at least for me, they communicated with me. So in the beginning, it just felt like, well, there's this collective wisdom type of a guide's energy, but I didn't know who or what. But over the courses of my own growth and expansion, one by one, they would start connecting with me in a very specific way. That I am so-and-so, this is my name.
Oh, wow.
This is what I'm going to help you with. And this is what you're supposed to do. So I think as a Korean shaman, we usually get a team of guides that have specific power and gift that help us do our work.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
And these deities, some of them are what we call so there's a non-human. So there are different type of deity. There's a nature deity, so mountain spirit or ocean spirit or celestial spirit or guides. They were never human before, so they're powerful in a non-human way. So these guys, you can't help them like, oh, I have a Kickstarter. Can you help me become successful? Like they don't know what to do with you because they were never human before. In different culture, they call that like fourth dimension and fifth dimension. So we are living in third dimension. So there are deities or guys that are fourth dimension who are closer to human. So these are our ancestors. So these ancestors were human before, but they've passed on, and then they now are coming to us in this archetype energies. Therefore, they can help us with a human issues like success in business, fertility, or money, or health. Like they're able to relationship. So these are that's why they have specific. But then there's other elemental gods or spirits or guides or deity, what do you want to call them? They were never human before. So the way they come help you is more beyond that. So it's like divine love or like ultimate healing or, so it's more of that. So as a
or peace or something like that.
So you have a team that consists of like some that are more like,
that is so awesome.
It's really cool.
It's like you have like a team of I don't know, like
X-Men or
wow, Well, it's so funny that you say X-Men because I call my people, I call them mutants. I call my people misfits and mutants because like the people that I attract into my life are nonconformists. They don't fit into society normally. So that's hilarious. So what would you say for, because I agree that I 100% believe that you have this wonderful access and open communication to different levels and different dimensions. And I know a lot of my clients also have had that connection, but they've really pushed it down and they've denied it. And many of my clients and students, they pushed it down and denied it to the point where it became really unhealthy because they were trying to force themselves to live in a normal culture, very much like X-Men. Like they have a special power, but because of what society says, they had to hide it, right? So how did you coming out as a Korean American shaman, or even like realizing you have these gifts, but then living in a culture, especially Korean culture, right, where you might have received criticism for your gifts, like how do you deal with that? What would you be your message to people who are like, who know they have this but are afraid to explore it?
Personally, I didn't know I was intuitive or spiritual or had this gift or open. I'm 45 years old right now, but until I was like 38 or 36 or 37, I was so anti-spirituality. Like, so if anybody talked about
Really?
vibe or manifesting, I'll be like, whatever, like, this is all bullshit.
Oh my God. So you did a complete turnaround.
I did a complete turn. Now looking back, what my guides are telling me was I was quite open in my childhood that I can't even remember, but there was certain things that happened that to preserve myself. You know, I have had my own share of childhood trauma and things like this. So somehow I closed it early on. So as far as I can remember, I was not spiritual. So for this started to happen, and I'll share just quickly, it started happen at the loss of a parent, not my mother-in-law. I was estranged from both my parents, and then I kept telling myself, well, my mother-in-law is wonderful. She's like a mom that I never had, and so it's okay if I haven't healed or resolved my own parental trauma. I got this mother. So it's okay. It's okay. And then she died in such a sudden way. And it just left all of us with such a regret, you know, that I'm like, oh, I didn't get to say, I didn't get to do. And 6 months in, and during those time, my gift was slowly opening up. Like I was meditating. I didn't even know what that was, but I was meditating and kind of exploring this. Oh, what's this law of attraction? What is this vibration thing? So I was just exploring that. But then 6 months later, after her death, like she came through. Yeah. Wow. And just like you communicated your death, she just came through, and the conversation with her just healed all the grief and regrets that I had, like my own Han, right? And then she said, okay, and tell your husband this. So she have a message for, she had twins. So my husband and my sister-in-law are twin. And he's like, here's a message for him, and here's a message for her. And I remember having that conversation saying, Mom, they're going to think I'm crazy, right? If I just told them that you just came and we had this conversation and this is your message, they're going to, like, how am I supposed to tell them? This is so crazy. And she said, well, if you say it this way, they'll believe you. Oh, wow. So I did. And like it, so that's how it started happening. So I had a lot of fears, just like your followers. What would people think? They're going to think I lost my mind. They're going to think I'm crazy. What will my husband think? What will my loved one think? I'm going to lose all my followers. And, you know, I'm going to lose all my credibility. I'm going to lose all my credibility. So these were real fears, but I just went with it. And what turned out to be is it really transformed my life in a most magical way.
Oh, I got chills.
Yeah, people who matter.
Yeah. And maybe
People,
that's the point.
I didn't lose people. I gained people.
No.
And those who mattered to me
Yeah.
stayed.
Yeah.
So a lot. So what I learned is, what I would share that, I don't know, I can't guarantee everybody's experience will be
Mm-hmm.
like mine, but I
Mm-hmm.
really believe when you really surrender to
Mm-hmm.
your divine calling, your soul's calling, your
Mm-hmm.
intuition is your
Mm-hmm.
connection to the divine, your soul's connection, your connection, because we are human beings. We're not just physical body. We have something called soul.
Yeah.
And our intuition is that communication of your
Yeah.
soul to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our soul never leads us wrong,
Oh. Oh,
right?
it's so beautiful. Yeah.
So if we have courage to, and you could be secretive about it in the beginning, you could kind of
Yeah.
do it your own way, and you have to, but if you have courage to follow that pull,
Mm-hmm.
you will be rewarded.
Yeah.
I won't even say rewarded because it feels like it's a transactional.
Yeah.
It is truly living your best life.
Yeah, and I think what you said earlier hit the point is your life really transformed when you finally surrendered to whatever was happening for you and you let go of your attachment to how people are going to think. It's like this transformation happened. And then at that point, it's undeniable. What are you going to do? Go back to your old way?
It's like, okay, you can go back to the Muggle world.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm a huge
Yeah.
nerd. So I use a lot of Harry Potter
I
and
thought
like
that was, I was like,
X-Men analogy. Yeah. But like once you know your magic, once you
yeah.
experience magic, you can't live in the Muggle world. Right.
Yeah.
Once you
Yeah.
imagine you are superhero or superpower, you can't
Yeah.
just go back to what the way
That's right.
things were.
That's
So
right.
your life is transformed or your world is different now. So who
Yeah.
cares if I
Yeah.
lost? It's like it's a non-issue.
It's a
Um,
non-issue.
and I think when you start really aligning your soul and start living that way, um, you will experience all of a sudden like
Mhm.
your relationship improves, your money
Yeah.
improves,
Mhm.
your trauma heals, your better heal. Like everything start just clicking, everything
Yeah.
start expanding. So when it started happening, and this is even before I knew I was a shaman, I was just like, okay, this intuition thing, let's just go with it.
Mhm.
Like, oh,
Mhm.
spirit comes to talk to me,
Yeah.
okay, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Um, but there are so many little validation of this, I'm on the right path. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden my world just started transforming. I was afraid that I was going to get hit by a bus or something. Cause I'm like, I felt like I had uncovered this truth about the world. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm just moving through my mundane day to day feeling so magical. And I remember
No.
thinking, is this how the
Mm.
world has been that I didn't
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't anything magical. It's just how you feel,
Yeah.
I'm still working, I'm still making money, I'm still
Yeah.
doing the mundane thing, but then it just feels that's alignment. And that's what I call magic.
Yeah.
And that's alignment. And that's your soul living through.
No.
It's just,
It's beautiful. Someone is saying, this is a question I want to ask you. Someone is saying that she didn't know being at the child as a child, she was visited by spirits, she or he, and it scared her. So they lost the ability to do that by the time they were 12 years old, and they regret that they lost that ability. Do you think that this is something that we can lose or that we can gain back? These.
yeah, I don't think you lose it. I
Mm,
think I'm the school of like, I think everybody is all a little bit psychic, a little bit,
yeah.
I think
I think.
everybody's intuitive. Now, mediumship, being able
Mm,
to see or communicate with ghosts or spirits who have crossed over, that's a gift. So not everyone is able to do that. So if you're a medium
yeah.
and had that kind of experience in childhood, of course it's scary. So you did what I did. I shut it down too, apparently, and
Mhm.
lived 30 some years saying no. But that's you just closing that port. So
Ah,
like this shop's closed because I'm scared of this. So
yeah.
you just shut it down. So if you want to, I don't think you lost it. I think you need to just practice opening it again.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I agree. I agree that we're all connected to that larger source. Everyone has a different name for it. It could be our soul, and then the collective soul, and then spirit. But we're all connected there in that space. And for me, it makes absolute sense that if we're connected, if we're truly connected, and there's no time and space, then we are connected to our ancestors who've passed, and thoughts and experiences. All of that is living all around us. And I also agree, some people have like access to that. They have a
Yeah.
key or something, and they are able to open that door and go in and out, and some people don't, and it's fine.
I want to go back to the person who commented.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's not you did something wrong and you closed it and you lost it. Maybe that was done because you needed to be protected. Because can you imagine? Look back when you're 12, 13, 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
Life is very, very hard as a 12, 13, 14-year-old. Maybe you weren't ready to have this kind of gift. So for your protection, perhaps that your higher self or someone, God or your ancestor, closed it for you so you could actually protect yourself.
Oh, I got chills. Like,
yeah,
if
I want to share.
Yeah.
I want to share another. Like, so I have a client or friend, and she's 15 now, but she's always been intuitive, and I've always known because she would I'm very good friend with her mother, so I've kind of seen her journey, and clearly I knew she was psychic. Clearly I knew she was very advanced soul living in 13-year-old's body. But when she and I knew that from when she was 10, 11, 12, so I've been part of the light, but I never brought it up. She did say, so there was times she says, I'm scared. Like, I think, so I've kind of taught her how to deal with that when spirits come. This is how you create a boundary. This is how you protect yourself. This is how you claim your space. Just like with human, you could do that. So I kind of taught her how to do it. But when she turned 14 and 13, it started expanding I feel like it started expanding in a way that she'll be with her friends and then she'll be like, did somebody call my name? Because she'll hear.
Wow.
Or she'll spontaneous have a vision. And so then it started hitting her in a weird way. And you know what her school thought? They thought she was having disassociation, and they were about to diagnose her.
You know what? Yeah, I'm always curious how many people like that have actually been diagnosed that way and have really just, and then they were fed drugs, and then they, then completely shut down. I'm sure there's
so for her case, because her mom is a very good friend of mine, and she was concerned too. So she called me and she's like, this is what's happening. And I said, I know people are going to think this is crazy, but it sounds like she's, her gift is expanding, and it sounds like she's having spontaneous vision. And because she's so young and she's so not ready for it, she can't decipher between the vision, psychic vision or shamanic vision versus what's happening in front. So she's struggling with it, but she's not crazy.
She's not crazy.
Yeah. So I had to fly out to where she's at. Her mom flew me in, and I had to kind of help her. And then now she's 15, I feel like, and then she kind of settled. But I really think about that special experience tells me perhaps when you think you lost your power or lost your gift, maybe that was a way to protect you.
Wow. Yeah.
And you could access it when you feel ready.
Yeah. So for the person who is, who made that comment, Seo is saying that you haven't lost it. It's not something that you have lost forever, and that you can absolutely open that door again and have access to that. Because the person who's commenting is saying that she's really sad that she lost that connection. And now she's saying that her mind is blown.
We live in a magical world. Yeah, we live in a glowing world.
I think that more than we know, I think children have access to these dimensions. And I probably had access, but then, through conditioning and through growing up and going through the freaking American educational system, which is horrible, that we really do end up conditioning our minds to shut all of this access down, and we lock it up. and then we just, we forget about it all. And I think that's so sad. I get so curious, like, what if we really nurtured this in children, from the beginning, and we told them, like, and we even helped them to explore different dimensions.
But I also think it's important to protect our children, actually,
Mm-hmm.
because when these expansions start to happen, you
Yeah.
could lose your mind because you feel like you're losing your mind.
Oh,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening? I feel what I feel. I have vision. What am I
Right.
doing? I still
Yeah.
need to go to work and make living. So if I'm a kid, like I
Mhm.
have to go to school, I have to listen to teacher, but I
Yeah.
see visions and I feel and see things. I mean, even as an adult, when you start exploring your gift again and you start experiencing expansion, it's really
Mhm.
important that you, um, that's where you need a spiritual mentor or healer or shaman or somebody who could help you, because it really feels like you're losing your mind. And
Yeah.
sometimes I've seen people, because discernment is really important.
Yeah.
Energetic boundary is really important.
Mm.
Really focusing on your own connection to your soul and higher self and divine is
Mm.
important. A lot of
Mm.
self-care is important. So if any of that is out of whack, it,
Right.
it could be really, what's that
Damaging,
word? Yeah, not necessarily
disruptive,
damaging, but like
disruptive.
chaotic. Yeah,
Yeah.
chaotic.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah.
so I don't want to just be like, everybody just
Oh,
opens it up.
everyone open up all your portals right
Yeah,
now.
it's all great. Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
do that. I really
It's a
um
party. Yeah, but I think that's what I mean, is like, if we're helping other children or youth or adults to create those self care rituals as they're going through a process, and helping them stay grounded in this 3D dimensional world, while also exploring, these talents and gifts in a safe way. I think that would really change so much of the psyche, because I feel like so much of our psyche, like the collective psyche here in America in particular, has just been trampled on and abused in many ways. And I feel,
mhm,
I look out there and I see so many people who I know are so gifted and talented, but they're struggling so hard because they've just been cut off
mhm.
from that.
And I think, and I don't want people to think, oh, the only way that I could really unlock my spirituality or connection is become like Seo or Kat, talking to dead
Yeah,
spirits and like show
yeah,
up as a shaman or spiritual mentor. You
yeah.
don't have to. I actually have a lot of clients and friends who are powerful psychics or shamans or
Mm,
heal, whatever you want to call it, but nobody will know. So,
yeah.
like, I have an interior designer, but she uses her intuition and
Wow.
visions to help her really be successful, but nobody knows. Like, she tells me, she comes to see me, but like, so you
Yeah.
could use your gift, the gut feeling, the
Yeah.
instinct, the
Yeah.
knot in my stomach. This is all intuition. So you can utilize this gift
Yeah.
in whatever way that you feel aligned
Yeah.
or authentic. You don't have to tell everyone, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
You know, um,
Yeah.
but it's all, I use it. Like, let's say your computer operating system. So you've been operating this one system, but then once you unlock your spiritual intuitive side, your operating system expands.
Mm,
So
mhm.
now your CPU is larger.
Yeah.
So your life
Yeah.
expands too, and you live, but you're still the same person. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. So if you're a lawyer, or if you're an author, or if you're a massage
Mhm.
therapist, or if you're a
Yeah.
coach, you could
Yeah.
still use your gift
Yeah.
in the way you live your life, and you don't
Exactly.
have to. It doesn't
Exactly.
have to be like this
It is, yeah.
spectacular thing.
It doesn't have to be on Instagram.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to put everything on Instagram, basically, or put it out there in the world. I
Hmm.
love that. So I want to wrap this up with this final question for you. Like, where do we go according to Korean shamanism? Where do we go after we die? What happens?
I don't know. I
Oh.
don't know. There, from what I hear from the spirits I communicate with, I just
Mm.
know that place that we go is blissful. And it's
Oh,
it's complete bliss. It's beautiful, and it's just beyond our human imagination of how wonderful it is. Um,
mm,
so that's what I know from my communication. So I
mm.
feel that I don't. So once it's almost, I joke, I said, hell's here. It's bliss there. This world where we
Yeah,
live is hell
yeah,
sometimes, right? But the
yeah.
other world is beautiful. Um,
Oh,
but we are living in this life, in this human body, in this human life, because we were meant to have some human experience. Maybe
yeah,
there's a soul purpose, or where soul is here to experience or make a difference in some way. And it is our job to stay present in this body and this human
yeah,
life as best as we can.
yeah,
And then when we die, have this surrender and trust that we're going to a beautiful place. We're going to God. We're
yeah.
going to that divine source. Um,
And then once we get there, do we pass on to another dimension, or is that the final resting place, or like what happens after that?
so many cultures, including Korean, we believe in reincarnation. So we
Buddhism.
think that our soul
Mhm.
continues on in whatever
Yeah.
reincarnation format. In Korean Buddhism, or even other Buddhism,
Mhm.
so there's some type of a judgment, like, so you have to, so if you go with some sins, or there's some balancing that needs to be done. It's
Uh,
not eternal hellfire from my
yeah,
culture, but it's more of like there's certain dues you have to pay, or
yeah.
evening of the balance. So there may be some work you need to do, and I don't know
Mhm.
what that is. Some religions say that's, there's some punishment, or there's some
Mhm.
work, or maybe you're reincarnated with plants or animals of your
Mhm.
lifetime before you could train. So that's different. But I don't know, right? Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah,
But I personally believe we go to that place, and life goes on. Our soul continues on, and whatever work we have to do, we do,
yeah,
and then we reincarnate with another life.
yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and
Oh,
that's a different experience. Yeah. So
yeah.
it's a journey.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I started tearing up when you're talking about that next place that we go. It's so blissful and it's really beautiful. I was telling Seo before we got on, right before we got on, knowing what topic of this um, conversation was going to be about, my sister visited me and she was like, she was right there in my face and I just got really emotional. Oh, I just got the message. That's what she wants to tell me. She's in a happy, blissful place. That's it. That was
Yeah.
the message. Wow. So when you were sharing that, it is very emotional for me because I can see my father there. I can see my omni there. And now I'm curious, are they able to communicate?
I think everything and anything is possible.
Yeah, yeah.
What I understand is sometimes I'm like, I don't understand. So, like, sometimes I start questioning, and then the answer I receive is, you're thinking in linear terms,
Oh,
and you're
yeah.
still asking this question limited by human structure. And
Yeah, yeah.
and they're like, we're telling you there, it's beyond that.
It's
So
beyond that.
even the question you're asking, you're still limited. And I was like, oh, that's right. So I just
Yeah,
need to let it go, right? I just need to
right.
release and just trust that it's beautiful. It's bliss there. Um,
Mm,
Unfortunately, sometimes when spirits transition, they don't get to go to that light. They don't get
mhm,
to be in that blissful place.
mm.
I've worked on haunted houses. I've
Oh,
worked on spirit attachment. I've
yeah,
worked on, so sometimes spirits come to, but so when you're a medium and they keep coming to you, sometimes it's to tell you
yeah,
we're good. So it's
yeah.
a message of love and healing, but sometimes they need you to help them. So that's shaman's work. But you don't
Oh,
even have to call yourself shaman. If you're a medium, sometimes if they keep coming to you, there's a
yeah.
message they want to be delivered, or there are certain things you're supposed to help them.
Oh,
So
so
that's the
beautiful.
shaman's work in Korean shaman. Like, so that's the in between place. We're
Yeah,
able to um, help. Maybe
yeah.
their loved ones
Navigate.
need.
You're able to
Mhm,
navigate that in between space.
mhm.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, I could continue on asking so many questions. Clearly, this is something that I'm just really experiencing right now in my personal life, and I just okay. First of all, Ritual, I mean, not ritual, Return. Check out the book Return.
Yes, I have
And
3 days left on Kickstarter, so please,
yeah,
we'll share the link and please take a look and
yeah,
share if you find
yeah,
it interesting.
absolutely. And if you happen to watch this after, get the book because it'll be available for purchase after.
Yes, it'll be available on my website after.
Yeah. And tell us where people can find you and what you offer people. Like, is it like there's sessions, right? Tell us. What
So
that,
I offer shamanic wisdom sessions. So it
Mhm.
is basically private session where I bring all my gift in and just see how I can assist you. So sometimes I'm channeling my own guides and my own ancestors who are there to help me, but sometimes I channel your ancestors and your guides. So if you're
Yeah.
unable to really connect, sometimes they come through and say, I've had goddesses come through, I've had guides come through, I've had ancestors come through. Just let her know this is a message. I could deliver the messages, and that
Yeah.
if the person is going through expansion, then my
Mhm.
guides will tell me, show her how to do a
Mm.
journey
Yeah.
or teach her how to do energy healing. So sometimes I
Mhm.
kind of share how
Wow.
to practice your own spirituality. So no
Yeah.
one shamanic wisdom session is alike, but
Mhm.
it's just
Mhm.
basically I bring all my magic and see if I can support you to
Yeah.
heal or
Yeah.
expand in one way.
Yeah.
So that's
Uh,
me.
yeah.
I'm always on Instagram.
Yeah.
So if you follow me on Instagram, it's my full name, Seo Kelleher. Then you can see what I'm up to and information I share.
Yeah. And all the links are provided. You also create this beautiful deck
Mm.
of cards. Oh, do you have pictures?
Yeah, I should
Oh,
pull one for everyone
oh
that's
yes.
watching it. Yeah, let's
Okay.
see.
Everyone's just watching you guys. Here we
These are
go.
Morning Come Oracle.
Yeah.
Um, oh,
Oh.
family. So we're talking about
Mm.
ancestors, talking about spirits. So
Yeah.
um, family, our biological family, as well as our spiritual family or our
Mm.
chosen family, the
Mm.
community and connection. So I think that you're just being reminded um, to connect,
Mm.
whether it's through your ancestor spiritually or living ancestor or your loved
Yeah.
ones. Um, if not your family, that chosen family, your
Yeah.
community, your
And also
sisterhood.
your motherland too. I mean, we were talking about Korean shamanism, but you don't have to be Korean. You don't have to seek Korean shamanism. Go to the roots of where you're from
Mhm.
and explore that. For me, this has been what this journey has been about. And my whole world has opened up. It's become so enriched because I'm Korean and I come from Korea, the land of Korea. And there's so much there that I have barely yet to explore. So this conversation is so juicy for me. For anyone who's listening, that is also available to you wherever your motherland is. And Seo, you are such a gift. I'm so glad that you're having this conversation with me. And I look forward to having you more because
I know, I've had so much fun. I wish you could just keep talking, but yeah.
I know, but I think we're going to break this up because there's so many layers and layers to who we are as Korean American women, what you do and what I do, the history of Korea that we haven't even tapped into. But I really want to explore that with you, and perhaps we can do that in future collaboration or unsermons, whatever that looks like.
That sounds great. Thank you for having me. I
Of
love to.
course. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. All right. This wraps it up for Unsermon number, I don't know. And we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.